Dangerous people and situations in adulthood feel like home when you were primed for chaos and brutality in childhood. And you're constantly walking on eggshells and conditioned to feel like chaos is your normal. That is why situations that present danger or an adrenaline rush seem familiar and normal to you, because not only are you desensitized to the brutality from childhood and your experiences in childhood, perhaps from a narcissistic parent, you are addicted as a child to the biochemical chaos that happens when those cycles of love bombing and devaluation come from one of your primary caretakers. When you are constantly on the lookout in order to prevent narcissistic rage in childhood, what happens? Your nervous system begins to feel like this kind of danger is not only familiar, it's normal. And in order to survive, you usually have to fawn, freeze, or flee. And often you can't fight back as much as you would like as a child because you are dependent on your caretakers for survival. So as an adult, when you encounter a narcissist or a toxic person who subjects you to similar cycles of love bombing and devaluation, what happens? You register that danger as normal. You're conditioned to see it as home. And that kind of conditioning becomes very dangerous when you are unable to escape the toxic cycle. Because when you are raised as a child to feel like you have to be resilient in order to survive it all, what happens? Your bounce back game may be a strength in other areas, but in toxic relationships, it gets weaponized against you in order to keep you trapped in the abuse cycle. That is why adult children of narcissists become so entrapped and ensnared so easily in the cycle of trauma repetition and trauma reenactment. They're susceptible to these knights in shining armor who come presenting this image that they're going to rescue them from their childhood traumas and their unmet childhood wounds and dysfunctional attachment styles. But what ends up happening is that the cycle repeats again because they are appealing to that sense of familiarity in that adult child of narcissists who feels like, oh, this feels familiar, this feels like home, and maybe I can correct this experience that I had as a child by gaining the validation of someone as an adult that is very familiar to the caretakers that I grew up with. Of course, the cycle just repeats and they feel even more devalued as a result of what happened to them in childhood. And that's not to say that every single target of a narcissist is a child of a narcissist or that they have experienced childhood trauma. In fact, even people who haven't experienced childhood trauma can be susceptible because they don't know what manipulation looks like at all. They don't register love bombing as manipulation like at all. They don't register love bombing as manipulation because they think, oh, this is just a person who recognizes how great I am. Unless the love bombing is extremely obvious and blatant, of course. But with covert manipulators, it tends to be more subtle. So this is not to just blame your childhood conditioning because anyone can be a target. It is simply to understand the cycle of trauma repetition better. It is simply to encourage you to resensitize yourself to danger cues, to learn that this is not normal and that the feeling of outrage and anger that you experience as a result is actually normal. It is your anger that is the inner child crying out, allowing you to experience what it's like as an adult to be violated and realize I don't have to fawn anymore. I can flee, I can fight if it's safe for me to do so.